Right now, we're hyper focused on data. That's kind of, and I hate the word because I'm sure Seth is so tired of hearing that word. I spoke at an event last week, and it was a 2-day event, and that's the word that was like the hotspot: data. And there were some super smart people that are way smarter than I will ever be. But it was amazing on how the lack of connectability to be able to take that data and do anything, or to be able to explain, to bring it into the insurance world's terms of what's happening with the data. Why do we need this data? What is the data going to do for us? And so we're hyper focused on 4 avenues really quick. First avenue is new business, utilizing data. There's nothing sexy about that. Everybody's talking about that. Loyalty score is one of my hot buttons. How do we create a loyalty score that we've been working on in order to be able to understand who's going to renew with us and who's at risk that we need to nurture and care for a little bit more. Number 3 is how are we going to mine internally inside of our business? We were able to take our data, and the really cool thing is we found 23 mobile homes in my book of business that possibly could have moved from where we had them originally insured with. We contacted them, and 16 of the 23 actually had moved. So what a great way to be able to analyze our book of business. And the last avenue, and also in avenue 3, is mining, is being able to pull. We were able to pull 60 plus people who had gotten engagement rings in the last 90 days. Really cool data that we could then sell, not sell our data, but able pick up the phone and call and sell more policies and round out and do a better job as an agent. And the last avenue is identifying by behaviors our book of business. For example, we found 25 people in our book of business in the last 24 months filed bankruptcy. We know that we have to really identify those and keep an eye on those and really understand, are they good risks or bad risks, along with identifying other bad behaviors. Bad behaviors are people who have specific behaviors which are more apt to have claims. For example, a routine, irregular cigar smoker is considered a high risk for risky behaviors, and identifying other things of that sort. That has been our laser focus for the past 6 months, and it's amazing just in the last 30 to 45 days what we have identified. Super excited over the next 60 to 90 days.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I mean, what interesting different sets of data to dig into, and just, I mean, if you think about where you can expand from there, that's crazy.
Well, we dug into how about understanding what I love about this, and I know there may be some carrier people on here that think I'm taking a shot at them. I'm totally not. So I'm preparing you right now. I'm not taking shots at anybody. Good business, right? Us agencies always hear, well, you got to write good business. Well, at the end of the day, we are a sales organization. I am not an underwriter. That's not what I went to school for. But utilizing data to be able to say, expendable income plays a role in who's likely to have a claim and who's not. Bankruptcy. Do you know one of the riskiest behaviors is scratch-it tickets? People who regularly scratch tickets. That is an extremely risky behavior that's been identified, along with smoking cigars. So that's not a routine smoker, but it's an actual cigar smoker who smokes cigars on a regular basis. So these were just some of the things that we've identified as risky behaviors. And to be able to understand that when a quote comes in, being able to really analyze the data and behaviors of whether that's good business or not is really a cool thing.
All right, let's try just a little bit different. Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Yeah,
Jeff, I think Olivia was getting ready to throw it over to you just to tell us, give us 120 seconds. What do you got going on in your agency right now? And I know that's going to be really hard for you to do, but let's see what you got.
All right. Sorry, I apologize. I could not hear. I just heard Chris's answer, which is great. So we also want to get information from our companies, and I agree with them. We have bad loss ratio. It's our fault. Yet they've got 3 billion predictive analytics to rate stuff, and they can't tell you where they're hot and where they're good and where they're profitable. We're having that dialogue now with our carriers, trying to get that information, because we can actually digitally target those clients if they can provide that. And most carriers just don't have that ability to do that. If you can tell me where you're hot, what demographics, we can actually drill our marketing down to the postal code, the street level, and try and find more people like that. But it's a bit of a tough game. One of our big things we're working on right now is we've been lead scoring. We came up with a simple 0 to 5 lead score on our business. So our 1,000 leads are coming each month. Our staff is keying that in, and we've got a score. And unfortunately, last 2 months, we've seen a lot of 0, 1s, and 2s, which are people with non-payments, high-risk auto stuff we're not trying to write. So now that we've actually quantified how the business, the quality, we were able to start going after more 3, 4s, and 5s, and we're trying to figure out what levers we need to do to improve that. So that's a big project we have right now. We switched over to a lead management system called Trufala. We were using Velocify. We made the switch in November. It's going to be better. We're helping to work with the company. Sharif Gamal is the guy that runs it. He's a personal friend of mine, and we're helping to build the software. So we will be building lead scoring into it, integrating a phone system, that kind of stuff, just for the CRM sales part of it. The other thing, the big thing I'm on to, and I'm writing an article for Chris's magazine where I talk about random acts of marketing or random acts of content. And we were guilty, and I give the analogy, imagine that you're parachuting, and you can parachute into one of 3 places. 1, onto a luxury island with a really nice resort. Number 2, right into an alligator's mouth. Or number 3, in a desert island. And some of our content, I would suggest, was maybe not as good. So we're parachuting people into an alligator where they're trying to leave quickly. Some of the other stuff, we'd have a perfect article, but we didn't tell them the next best action and create the content journey. So that we really struggled to be able to provide the people, to move people the velocity down from being a visitor or stranger down to a raving fan. So we're actually, our team is hyper focused on building a way better content journey using video, blogs, but suggesting the next best thing. So we've got a lot of work to do over the next 2 or 3 months to rebuild our page, to build that, but we feel that's going to generate more people and provide a lot better experience. So we're hyper focused on the content experience.
Awesome, good stuff. That's great. I'm gonna kick it over to Seth. I know a lot of people I think know what you've got going on. Let me see if I can mute Jeff for just a second. Jeff, I'm gonna keep you muted because of the background noise.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm in the air.
Seth, lay it on us. We're all busy people. But I feel like in the insurance world, there may be no one busier in this moment in time. And so, how do you balance it all? What have you got? What is like, give us a snapshot. What's the top of your stack today?
Well, I should have an answer for that. Yeah, it's a busy time. And I think you probably heard why in those 2 answers. You've got arguably probably 2 of the best agents in the world spending a significant amount of time and resources on pulling information, using that information to create proactive response, to help with underwriting profit, to help with profitability of the agency, new business acquisition, efficiency and margin gain within the agency. And that's a lot to do. And here you've got 2 magicians doing it, but the average Joe, like maybe me and you, that's not something that we have the capability to do. And it's hard to scale too. All of us can find ourselves getting in trouble there. And so what we're working on is connecting everything so it just happens. And when you connect everything, then you can know everything. And when you know everything, you can do anything. And so, Chris started out with a 4-letter word, and I don't know if there's any kids listening, so they might want to change, but that data is a 4-letter word. And it means so much, and it means almost nothing because it's so abstract. And I think that's what Chris' point was making. So the one thing we're focused on top of Stacked is connecting everything. You see all these platforms popping up. You see all these specialists trying to get stuff out of the systems and get them into some continuity so that it can be used for something. And I say, why not just fix the systems? Why not just connect everything? Why not make sure that that should just happen? I mean, it should just happen automatically. And so that's what we're working on at Be Atomic, is connecting everything so we can know everything with the data, and then we can do anything we need to do. And I would say the other thing I heard in the original, in Chris's intro and in Jeff's intro, which I think is also a problem for all of us, is scale around that. So when all of that changes, when all of a sudden scratch tickets are a great behavior, or content falling into a specific thing actually has value where yesterday we might have not valued it. Well, how do we know that? And how do we pivot? And so if Chris, if Jeff, if me, if you, if all agents can figure out how to scale and understand that together, well, then we can be more nimble and more relevant going forward. So you add to that Zinc, which is a growing agency, which we had our best sales year ever last year, although we didn't hit the goal we set out for, which Sid made public, which I was like, okay. But we had our best sales year, and we want to do it again. This would be our 5th year in a row where we exceeded our previous year's best effort. So trying to keep that on the rails and grow is always top of mind too. So it's a little bit of everything.
Seth, I feel like one of the main questions that I wanted to ask you today, and I've heard it out there in the space, in the industry. You know, I think Sid and you and the whole Neon team has done a great job of building the anticipation for what is to come. And you've got rockstar agents that are involved with using it and are doing some amazing things, and we hear from them a lot. What can, and I'm going to preface this, what can agents, and I'm just going to say Main Street agents that's got small shops all the way up to medium-sized shops and larger ones, what can we start to do to prepare for this tidal wave of data that we're going to have to deal with? Is it putting processes in place to clean it up? Is it getting on the same sheet of music as far as how we're collecting it? I think some that would help, I think, frame the project that you're working on and the technology that you're working on, so that when there is that opportunity for the industry to jump in, that we can do so and be on the same sheet of music.
Yeah, and I'll kick it off. I mean, Chris he's lived this the last year, so he'll be able to give you the blood and guts, gory details of it, and Jeff for the last few years. But if you think about it, independent agents have ceded their data quality to everybody else but themselves. First off, they don't hold themselves or the people in their office accountable to what goes into their systems. Just put it in wherever and however you want. We'll figure it out. So that's the first thing. Then we said, well, if we're going to do anything with data, then it must be our AMS that does it. So we'll just convert, and then they'll do something for $15,000, and then things will be magically better going forward. And so if you look at the insanity of that, taking your largest asset, which is your agency, and having no guidelines or no clarity about how we use the system, and then relying on a third-party vendor who has no vested interest in the quality or usage of your data as your main source of cleansing or using that data going forward, you're already behind the 8 ball. And so I would say for every Main Street agent out there, like myself, Chris, or Jeff, who are just agents trying to do it, you have to take ownership of the fact. You have to believe that this is an asset that could be used. If you don't believe that, then you know what? You can tune out the rest of this and just get back to doing some certificates. But if you believe that, then you want to start looking at the discipline. You definitely want to look at cleansing that. And that's probably a good kickoff for Chris, because Chris has gone through that process and spent a lot of time doing that. Once it's cleansed and organized, even in the systems you're using now, you can start to do things with it using third-party software or consultants to do that. So that's the process everybody has to go through. Every Neon's got to go through that to come into Neon, because we've got to start with a clean data set. And once you do, then our system just makes it in a clean, organized way, no matter how you use the system. And that's the difference going forward. But that's where they should start. And Chris can tell you exactly what that's like, because he's done it. Go, Chris.
Not easy. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Comes with processes and procedures first and foremost. You got to have, I would highly recommend, because every management system is different, and getting your data, the way you put it in AMS is not the same way you put it in Hawksoft. And we've learned that the hard way. We were able to hire the right person to literally go line by line by line to say, hey, your intentions were great and it worked for AMS, but now that you're on Hawksoft, it doesn't work this way. So what are we doing still today? We're still cleaning data up. And it's remarkable. It's so I would tell you process and procedures are absolutely key. And Seth, you were saying, cleansing, that's the key. Process and procedures and cleansing your data. The one thing I would disagree with Seth, and I don't disagree with him much, because how can you, is the value of the agency is not as valuable as the data we have inside the management system. I firmly believe that the real value of Paradiso Insurance is inside the management system, and or the rating system versus residual income. We all think, and I used to swear, and I would tell my father, he's flying around.
100% agree.
Residual income. The greatest thing since pensions, and pensions are gone. We have residual income. No, the greatest thing is data and the value of the data. It is beyond. And anybody that argues it, it's simple. Look at Facebook. People laugh. Gary Vee said, one of the most brilliant minds, which was the Facebook founder, he bought Instagram for $4 billion. And I remember him being live on Twitter and people laughing at him. 4 years later, it was worth $65 billion. The only person laughing is the gentleman that owns Facebook and Instagram.
I happen to agree with that. I just go on record as saying so that is the new reality we live in. And yes, agencies that have used and can coordinate their data to create different and better outcomes. It's not okay just to have it. You have to be able to use it. You have to be able to change behaviors, improve behaviors. The agency who can do that is worth tons more, for sure. Question from somebody?
Yes. The question is, I hear so many people talking about data. What data are we specifically talking about? What should we focus on collecting outside?
Well, I would tell you that most agency management systems aren't even focused on the right data. So we're not talking about date of births and PII, personal information. That's not the stuff we're talking about. So that stuff has very little value anymore. Most of the value has already been squeezed out of that lemon, and we've really wrung the lemon inside out now, trying to squeeze the last drop out of it. What I would say is all of the interactions you have with your customers, whether it be on the marketing side, the sales and prospecting side, or even on the customer experience side, all of those things in the aggregate add up into relationships. So every interaction, whether it be an endorsement, a change, a new business process, an incoming request for quote, all of that stuff is learning in today's world of data. It can tell a story about something and can be used to predict future stories. And so most agency management systems were built to value policy related data or account level data. And I would deem that as low level. And I wouldn't spend a lot of time on that. Yes, it should be in your system the right way. And yes, it can be used for some basic insights if you've got data science teams or analytics. However, the coordination of all the things that led up to the transaction and then post-transaction, how the experience went, that story can only be told by agent interaction. And that has the value, not just the value for your agency in terms of growth and profitability, but value to carriers in terms of understanding the consumer and underwriting and pricing it better, and value to the whole channel in terms of why do independent customers buy from independent agents who work with independent carriers. That information, that story is yet to be told, and it all starts with the agent.
I think there is some data that is very instrumental. For example, if you are using VoIP, this is not even questionable, every phone call needs to be put in the management system, because that's what our data analytics is doing. They're reading voice. They're understanding tone of voice to understand how happy. We are going to go live real time with our phone calls to understand if people are actually happy. So the analytics aspect is instrumental to VoIP and having every phone call, to creating that loyalty score and creating the customer experience. How happy is that client? How unhappy is that client? Emails have to be integrated, because people talk about touch points, right? Seth, touch points are critical. But if you have an email system that's not integrated and you don't know, if I've sent Seth 25 emails, people say, oh, you're killing me with emails. Well, if they open 2, well, how am I killing you with emails? Because you got rid of 23. There's only 2 touch points there. Those are actual key information and key data, little things like that, and such as cell phone numbers being in the proper place, email addresses. I believe that still 40% of agencies have less than 30% of their clients' emails, which is astounding to me. But that's all data that we need to have, and it needs to be positioned properly inside the management system.
I agree with that. I'm
trying to see if we can get Jeff in here. Jeff, we're having a hard time hearing you, buddy. I think the airport has got the best of him. Oh, this is tough. Hey, listen, while Jeff's working on that, Julie Brindle put out a question for Seth. Is there a way for agents to help support Be Atomic Cause other than financially?
Oh my goodness, that's the sweetest thing ever, Julie. Yeah. Wow, that caught me off guard, Julie. That's really sweet. Yeah. Yeah, we need help. So if you look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to get agents to adopt new practices that make them both better or more capable from a data usage standpoint and a connected standpoint. And it makes information that all of us can learn from together. And so we need agents to be thinking about that transition. And it's going to require change. Revolution doesn't happen in your living room on a Sunday with a cold beer. It usually is on a Saturday in DC, marching in the heat to get it done. And so what I would say is the support we need from agents is the willingness to come with us. And we're going to be asking next year for agents to come with us. So, I would say learn about what we're doing, learn about what other people are doing, have an opinion about it, and be ready to support it. And the other thing too is talk to your carriers about it. So we're having a really intimate conversation with carriers, and we need them to participate in new connections that make this stuff happen. And so it's not enough just to tell your carriers we need APIs. They have them. Most of them aren't external facing at this point. And even if they were, there's not a strategy around connecting them into legacy technology. We've got the technology for them to connect that in there and improve the customer experience, get margin gain for agents, and help them understand and know better. And so what I would say is for agents to support us, join the conversation. The support that we get publicly is very helpful. It lets carriers and agents know that we're for real. And frankly, it puts the world on notice that we're not going away, because I think oftentimes agents can be dismissed if we don't have an intelligence conversation around this. And so we'll be on all the biggest stages this year trying to tell this story, show up.
So I'm just going to throw this question out there. What do you think is the first step that, like, an agency that I came from, large agency, some pretty serious data disorganization issues, what does that timeline look like for an agency to try and get that information organized in a way that allows them to really maximize on the information or be able to migrate? Like, what do first steps look like?
Paradiso, you just went through that.
There's two ways of looking at that. It depends on what data you're actually looking for. There's a lot of data that can be purchased through companies like Pitney Bowes, right? So what do they need? What does anybody need to do? An analytics company need to get into your management system and basically scrape customers' names and information to be able to match and go grab information at a third party. If you're talking about cleanup and you're talking about being able to do more things internally, we need data to be correct for multiple reasons. The first time we went through this, we found thousands of records that we couldn't utilize, meaning clients, we couldn't use the data because the data was so mumbo jumbo. The cell phone's here, there's no work numbers, no email, it was placed over here, there's notes over here, just unorganized. That organized data will help you build a larger, more accurate picture versus having a very narrow picture. So it depends. If they say, hey, we're going to use third party and we're going to try to figure out demographics, which is key, right? Demographics, where are we living? We can identify neighborhoods, average income of neighborhoods, so we know where we want to insure, what we don't want to insure. You don't need as organized data, but it's still not going to be as good. So it really is going to depend. I push people that call me and say, hey, you got to clean up data, because if you clean up data, you're going to have the truest picture. And what is cleaned up data? Being able to have the name in there properly. How many people put, and I was just sitting down with an agency, they'll have a husband and wife, they created 2 separate accounts. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Do we have the husband and wife on one account with one address? Well, they have multiple houses. Well, she owns this, he owns this, and the data is it's just haphazardly thrown in there.
Right.
So there needs to be accuracy. And I think the key factor is finding the right coach in the senses of process and procedure coach, depending upon which management system. The woman we hired is invaluable for helping us really understand HawkSoft and why our data needs to be, hey, we need to be filling it out this way because in AMS, when we fill it out this way, it meant something different. You'd be shocked I was floored when I spent an hour and a half the first meeting, and I was like, wow, what a different world. It's like being in China versus in Italy.
Yeah.
Well, I wish we did this from day one. And
Right.
that was a huge mistake. If you change management systems, please do your homework to find the right person who's going to help you with processes and procedures. No matter what it costs, it is so inexpensive than doing it a year, 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember the system conversion, and it was, it's like 8 years ago, and it still feels like yesterday because it was such a painful process. But how did you go about finding somebody? Was it somebody that HawkSoft recommended? Because
Yeah.
one of the issues we ran into, and I think it happens in multiple agency management systems, is that there's too much free form. Like, you could use this field for this, or you could use it for that. They don't necessarily hand you a best practices. So how do you find that person that can get you on that track?
I think the key is I think the management systems do a very poor job, and I'm not criticizing them because I know what they're doing is when they sell you, most people are moving because of cost. I believe it's the cost game. The same thing that agents shouldn't be doing. Oh, we're going to sell on price. Oh, we don't sell on price. Well, why are we buying on price? I think the management systems should be really transparent in a sense is, hey, what they don't do well because of cost and agents don't spend the money is being able to at least advise and saying, hey, we're going to help you on board, but you really should think about hiring this or that expert. And unfortunately, I got 9 months into something and I was really ticked off, and I called HawkSoft, and HawkSoft, the owner says, oh, you got to call Hirsch. And that changed my whole world once I called Peggy. It's just, why did I have to come to a state of frustration, which I was fed up? If we did this from day one, I know there was a cost, but the cost is significantly more now because we're fixing things than if we started from day one.
Yeah.
And I hope management systems listen to this and don't take it as a cheap shot at them. You got to open your mouth and explain why it's ever important that we spend this money. It's invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the out of the box solution is very general, right? Like, they're trying to create a system that's going to fill the needs of a general audience, but really getting specifically into the way that your agency needs to use the information or where it needs to go. You need that outside person to come along and help you get everything in there exactly the way it's supposed to. Because going back and cleaning it up, I agree. You think about the investment, and even if you say, I'm going to have 2 people just dedicate 6 months of their time to cleaning this up, that's a significant cost on an agency. So, yeah.
That's why I think Seth's biggest issue is when people are looking to go to his system is going to be, how do we work with the data? I am a huge supporter of Seth's, and I think in the day of 2020, we are talking about an agent working for agents. Even if you're not moving to Seth's platform, follow Seth's platform, understand the platform. It is going to help better agencies. If nothing more, it's going to annoy some management systems to change their behavior, to stop becoming a management system and becoming a profit center. And we have to stop, it stores stuff. It holds stuff. It needs to do more. It needs to produce income. It needs to be a sales tool. That it's a long time to come, but here we are in 2020, and what Seth has already done is amazing. Just bringing agents together and bringing great minds together to better the industry. Invaluable, the friendships I've made, just being around Seth and the people. It's what he's done is as Frank Setner said, Seth will move the industry more than any other product in the last 50 years. And that's coming, those are big words from a genius like Frank Setner, and those that don't know should follow Frank.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant mind. Seth, I think you would agree. Somebody who's constantly pushing the industry. And a lot of agents don't know Frank. Frank created Sajita Management System, but is helping a lot of people behind the scenes, including Seth, who he literally says, of anything I get involved with, this is probably the most earth-moving thing in the industry that could ever be pulled off. And if there's anybody to do it, he looked me dead in the eye and said, Seth's going to do it.
Yeah.
Well,
And this is what I've loved about the journey of, I mean, I only met Seth a year ago. I picked him up at an airport in Milwaukee. And that's
I
how
remember that.
that's how I like met him in person. But it's never been a money-making enterprise. It's really been about making improvements, pushing for change, helping to improve the life of the agency force. And it's, I mean, yeah, if you can't go to the Neon system, you know, Seth, that's never been a caveat for whether you could have a relationship with Seth or not. It's really been about informing people, creating positive change, allowing us to do a better job for our customers, and, you know, and do it more efficiently. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's such a different, I feel like a different way of looking at it than we've been accustomed to looking at it. So yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting thing to watch. So how did the three of you end up like connecting and like just figuring out that you had so much in common and that you needed to get in a room together and have these conversations?
Well, I had the privilege of attending seminars for years and listening to Chris talk, and to even Jeff, and they're amazing teachers. Like, I mean, literally those guys pack 1,000-seat rooms and teach the industry on all that stuff. So I watch them and learn from them. And I don't think I'm a teacher like them. These guys command a room of 1,000 people and tell them how to go back in their agency and do better and show them what they're doing. And that's awesome. I'm much more like Keith Richards. I'm just a traveling minstrel that thinks like, let's show up and let's fix things and let's put on a good show. And like, this show could come to your town. And when it comes to your town, let's party on. And I think for me, Chris and I bumped past like online for years. And then finally last year is the first time we ever met in person. Jeff and I met a couple of years ago at an Elevate conference, or excuse me, an IAOA conference in Arizona. And so, I don't know, a couple old vets kicking around the industry, eventually you bump into each other. And I think what makes Chris and Jeff especially special to me and dear to this industry is their passion around performance and agents and our abilities. And that makes them different from everyone else. And neither of those two men will settle for anything less than what's right and what's good. And I think that makes them both right and righteous. And I think that's a very rare combination of people today in this industry who are both right, doing things that are technically correct, but also doing it for the right reasons, righteousness. And so I think that's how we all came into each other's universe.
We're all very blessed, very fortunate. Jeff is a part of, just became a member of a CEO's group that I belonged to for 8 years. They met with Seth, and I've been involved in this 8.5 years as CEO's group, a very private group, quiet group. When we're together, when we go out, maybe not so quiet as Seth and Jeff realized. But the first thing, and I still get emails, and I said, we want Seth involved in our group. Seth is different than what we have in this group. We need to open our eyes to what's different. And that's what makes the group so special, is that the group is made up of, everybody is so significantly different. One agency insures 62% of the marinas in the United States. 62%, massive, right? But still sitting there listening to Seth saying, he's onto something. We want to get behind this. We want to be an early adopter. And that's what's interesting. And, you know, adding Jeff to the group was amazing. Hopefully adding Seth to his very busy schedule is amazing. But I think at the end of the day, what allows us is I think we all truly believe in the industry. it brings a tear to my eye, but I say this at almost at every single speech. There is no more giving group than independent insurance agents. And I know there's a lot of captives that are very caring and giving to community too. But I assure you, I've never been in a community where there's not an independent agent giving away bikes for reading, giving away Bibles, Shaw agency, traveling all around the world, a third party, where she's never going to sell anything, but she's giving. The independent agent, and I think we're all passionate about the industry. We're passionate about the people in the industry. My best friends are industry people. They're not competitors. So I think the barriers to break down, if I could get one point across, is we are not competitors. We are not. We have to stop thinking. We need to help each other, because our real competitors are the billion-dollar advertisers like Geico and Progressive. They're our true competitors. Seth, and I write business in Cleveland. Seth's not a competitor. We're not competitors.
No, and I think I think that's a huge point to make, Olivia. And I think every agent should think about this, because this is our opportunity. We have a chance to scale together and do something really special together. Chris doesn't have enough data to win any wars. Neither do I at Zinc, but together we do. And if you think about it, large agencies are going to struggle with this great migration, this talent migration, this data migration, this customer migration. They're so committed to the systems that run their policies that it's hard for them. And so this is a moment where independent agents can and should come together and scale, because we're going to be scaled by technology. Google, the big guys, they are going to aggregate us in one way or another. The question is, will we be aggregated, or will we choose to aggregate for ourselves? And both Jeff Roy and Chris Paradiso are stubborn enough, and so am I, to say, you know what? Forget it. You're not going to do it to us. We'll do it ourselves. And when we do it ourselves, it'll probably be better for everybody, and it'll allow us to have our values in place at the end of it. And so this is going to happen. We should do it together. And that's why I love these guys, is because it's never about us as individuals. It's about how do we move agents and carriers and our customers forward and do the best for them. Hey, Jeff.
Jeff, welcome back. Sorry, we've had some technical issues here, but Jeff,
I'm actually back in. Wow,
you're in.
I went to my iPad, to my iPhone, to my iPad. I really learned how to use this program really well, but yeah, sorry about that, guys. We've
yet to have one of these go completely smooth, so this is kind of par for the course.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't realize we're using a third-party software. I thought we were using it right through Facebook, so
gotcha.
I would have made sure I wasn't at the airport. So
that's all right.
So I feel like I missed out on the conversation, but some great points around. I loved your conversation about structured versus unstructured data. Answering the question about how do agents do it. One of our big challenges will be is getting a system that connects everything together, like Seth. Seth's building a system that can tell the story and connect the data from the very start to the very end. One of the big struggles we have is just getting carriers ready to connect with us. Carriers, as Seth pointed out, have a bunch of internal APIs. They've not externalized them. And that's probably our biggest barrier right now, is if we can get that data flowing back and forth between us and the carrier and tell that full story, it's amazing where we're going to go. And there's some of the carriers that went over to the Duck Creeks of the world and, the more modern systems, which are getting ready to connect, which was exciting. Like, we are currently in Canada, a lot of carriers are on Guidewire, and I'm working with a CZO Innotech committee where they got some carriers and brokers together, or be agents in the US, and we're discussing about how we can actually open up connectivity, how we can do it better, and we're looking at trying to create something unique to I can't legally talk about it yet, but we're trying to set up a catalyst for the industry to build those connections, because once that data is going back and forth, we're going to save a ton of money on labor. We're not going to be double entering through portals. We'll be able to map the self-service features out to our clients through chatbots, through mobile apps. It'll be incredible where we're going to go. And we're just on the cusp of some greatness, but there's a lot of work to be done. There's not an easy path right now. Seth's pilot agents on Neon are blazing a new trail, and they're doing some amazing work. And it's going to be really clear in the next year how this hard work's going to pay off. So
we're going to win. I'm telling you, we're going to do it. I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here talking to y'all, we can win this. We can do this. I can't talk about it, but the carriers are coming. They're coming.
So that's actually, Seth, I know you can't talk too much about it, but one of the things I wanted to throw to you was I want to talk about how the carriers are responding. because I think that's going to be a key to this whole thing, right? I mean, how do we convince the blue chips that are out there that what we're doing is meaningful and worthwhile, and it's only going to benefit all of us? Can you speak to that at all?
Hey, Seth, do you hear that baby crying? It's a symbol. It's a sign.
We're doing awesome with carriers. First off, most of the legacy systems don't give carriers a meaningful and safe connection to do it. They have it. They needed people who would understand it, and they needed systems that can connect to it, and they really needed agents to be able to use it, right? And so I think they've been third party to death from vendors saying, hey, we want these things so we can dollarize them and create another bridge. But when agents came to them and said, no, these are our customers, and these connections benefit our collective customers.
Yeah.
They bring us closer together. They're not separating us by vendors. These connections bring us closer together. Here's thoughtful architecture built in a 21st century way that's safe and secure and that works with your current strategy. It took agents a minute to get that message right. We've got it dialed in now, and I'm telling you, we haven't lost yet. I'll just say that.
That's amazing.
We haven't lost yet. And you know, small sample size, so we're just a startup and we're getting going. But I know how this stuff goes, and I'm on the inside just like you guys. And you know when you're winning, and you know when you're not, and you know when things are moving and when they're not. And I can tell you, agents should be extremely optimistic about where this is going. The question they should be asking is, when this pops, and it's going to pop this year, when this pops, am I on a system? Am I in a place, or how do I get on a system, or how do I get in a place where I can take advantage of it? And we're going to be at IIANC talking about what that looks like and presenting strategies this year on how to do that. And it's not going to be just us. All sorts of people are going to have to do this. The question will be their motives, just like everything else. Why are they getting into the business? What happens to the data? Who owns the data? Who makes money off the data? Does it best serve the customer, the agent, and the carrier, or does it benefit somebody else? And this is what the marketplace is going to sort out. But here's what I know. Agents leading the charge have the upper hand because we represent a business case and a partnership that no other vendor does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the insurance companies are being data muled just as an agent is.
Oh, heck yeah.
I heard yesterday a specific vendor made over $200+ million selling our data. $200+ million.
Wow.
And I know the vendor. I know that deal. And don't forget, that's what they sold our data for. We had to pay that vendor to use their systems. We had to pay our people to acquire that data, and we had to spend our time, energy, and resources to put that stuff in there. I'm so proud of that term, data mule, by the way.
Yeah, I stole it from you. That's a
it's a powerful image.
We are being muled by these people, and it's just got to stop. I'm sick and tired of it, and you should be too.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having a backbone.
Yeah, I think what struck me as soon as I saw the neon system was just how common sense it was. Like, I remember looking at it going, why didn't somebody think of this 10 years ago? I mean, honestly, you look at it and you go, this is so intuitive. It makes so sense. It's modern. It's streamlined. It reports on what you need to know in order to effectively make decisions, pivot in your business if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of crazy when you look at it. You're like, oh, this makes so much sense. It can't be this easy. I mean, I know that there's a lot of work that goes into that, but it seems like the flow of it is so exactly how the brain goes that
Well, here, and who's listening, by the way? Are we alone, or who are people watching?
There's people watching. We're live.
Nobody's just go on, Seth.
Just say what you gotta say.
Here's the thing, and it is. Someone said the other day, they're like, we were talking to a vendor the other day, and they're like, "Are you sure nobody? This is how the whole world works. Are you sure that nobody else is doing this in your industry?" And we're like, "Yes," and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna do so well." They're like, "You're gonna do so well," and I'll tell you this, and you'll see it at IIANC because that's where we're going to reveal kind of our product for the first time. But think about this. Agency management systems manage accounts.
Right.
Accounts are built of policies. Agents manage relationships. part of that relationship is an account, but it's way down the line. When you answer the phone, accounts come in at the end. Yeah, we'll send you the this and that. And so that paradigm, if you're an agent, think about this. You're spending your time and energy managing accounts. Accounts leak data or don't make data, and they're hard to manage. If you manage the transaction or the interaction, just that, and put all the other stuff into that, now it's very organized, very broken up, and very aggregatable and shareable.
Yeah.
And as simple as that sounds, the whole industry for 40 years has managed accounts.
Yeah.
Neon just manages the interaction. And if you think about your day and your customers and your prospects as just a series of interactions with account and relationship and marketing stuff, as opposed to everything having to fit into an account and a policy, that's the basic paradigm shift. And when it comes to you, you're literally going to say to yourself, shouldn't we have always been doing it this way?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to that paradigm shift,
shift,
I mean, I feel like that people need to, agency owners and even producers, and people have to start understanding that it's the processes that you're putting in place right now to start grabbing those pieces and putting it in the right spot, getting yourself digitally organized.
Yep.
Even, I mean, I think a lot of people could be listening to you, Seth, and this whole thing, and they're here, and you're out here, and there's this giant chasm, and it's like what helps us build that bridge to cross that chasm. And I think a lot of the stuff that's been talked about a lot, Paradiso's led this charge through the years, and it's just process, getting sales in the right place, getting communication in the right place, getting all that stuff together, so that when this pops, as you say, we're in a place where we can springboard into it and be able to take advantage of it. Because if we just sit back and hope for you to give us the magic bullet, that's not going to happen.
No,
it has to be grassroots, us getting our businesses organized the right way so that we can take advantage of it.
And here's the key with that. And Sid and I were talking about this yesterday. The whole industry, myself, Chris, Jeff, Olivia, Landon, everybody started with structure, and we're trying to cram strategy into the structure. Here's your structure. It's a policy. It's an AMS system. It's these 8 fields. Now go out and figure out how to put strategy into that. It's hard because we started with structure. You would never start a meeting at your agencies with structure and strategy. The first part of every meeting is start with the strategy, and now let's figure out the structure. And the fundamental shift that we is like, you know what? The whole industry forever is trying to cram strategy that doesn't fit into this old structure. Let's just start with a good strategy around the customer and around the transaction, and let's build the right structure. Oh, by the way, that's the rest of the world is working that way. Your car dealer, your HVAC repairman, McDonald's, Nike, Tesla, Ford, elevators, everybody is going that way. We should not be the last.
Well, and it's, I think, you know, in the defense of the industry, I think a lot of us still operate as a sole practitioner or as a practitioner of sorts, versus trying to globally understand what my business is doing and how does it interact with customers. And I think that's a key transition that people need to make as well.
That's why we're failing at perpetuation. That's why we're failing at meaningful growth for the channel. It's why we're failing at everything, because we've looked at ourselves as insurance agents and not business owners.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, doggone it. I mean, look at the suit that he's wearing. I should look like that. That's a business freaking owner. And oh, by the way, the business happens to be insurance.
I want to see you in a suit. So.
Wow. At my funeral.
Next time. Oh, God. Okay, never.
I already got married and you missed
that. So when I hear you talk about this and the shift, I think it's hard to, like, if you've been doing this, say you've been doing it the same way for 20 years and you've really never thought about anything else or you know, just modernizing the way that you're doing business. I think it's hard to wrap your head around the untapped potential that is on the other side. Like, it's the upside for the agent by thinking about this a different way is incredible. Like, it's just huge. And so it's so big. It's maybe the biggest part, I think, of the whole thing. I mean, for me.
But when you walk through what Seth is doing, you know, we can sit here and people will be overwhelmed and blown away, but you sit there and you actually see what Seth is doing and you're like, what did you say? It's simple. It's really simple. But then again, I was smirking before simplicity. The 502nd fastest growing company is Rocket Referrals in the United States. How simple of a project did they start with? E-pay policy. Does it get any simpler than that?
Right.
The geniuses, and I sit back and say, why didn't I think of that?
Yep.
They're all simplistic. And
absolutely.
when you sit down with Seth and you spend an hour, 2 hours going through it, you're like, why are we doing it the way we were trained to do it when we should be thinking of it the way Seth? And it really opens all of our eyes. So those that are overwhelmed, set up a demo and see it, and it will change the way your outlook on how we're doing things today and how much easier and how much better for the customer experience it's going to be doing it Seth's way. I just don't know who. And it took so long to realize.
And here's what I'll say about that. When Chris opened it saying our data is worth more than our agency renewals, right? That's a bold statement. And if there's anybody bolder in this industry than Chris Paradiso, I don't know him, but like that's a bold statement, and he's right.
Yeah.
We are data making machines about relationship, about sales, about marketing, about customers, about carriers. We are machines. And so if we could just organize those transactions for the benefit of them first and then make data in the process, we now can feed $1 trillion economy with information that makes it better. Better for who, you ask? Good question, Olivia. I'll ask it for you. Better for the customer. Better for the customer. They get a better experience, which makes us world class. Better for us because we operate more efficiently and get scale and margin where we can make money. And better for the carrier because they more deeply understand the consumer and the relationship and the part that we play as agents in the delivery of this very valuable product. The fact that those three things have been separated for the last 200 years in this country is ridiculous to me, and we can change it. And if we don't change it, somebody is going to connect it. And you see them trying through direct channels. You see them trying through big technology vendors. Someone is going to connect the customer with the service provider, with the carrier, and it should be us.
Yeah. And when I think about where this all goes and, you know, the future of the industry, like simplifying this, tapping into that potential, just it makes the future of the industry even that more attractive. So we talk about the lack of talent, you know, being able to recruit into this industry and onboard them and, you know, get them to a place where they're understanding. We've made it so complicated that it's intimidating, and it's not, people don't feel comfortable necessarily coming into an industry like this. And so you start to create tools that make the work easier and make it all make sense. And I feel like it creates a completely different future for the industry and getting people to come in, getting them interested in working in insurance.
Well, and I think to speak to the generational gap there a little bit. I mean, when we think of our fathers, our fathers-in-law, our agency owners, whoever's out there, a lot of them made a very large investment in their business 10, 15, 20 years ago. And now this new wave is coming in that is like another big, giant reinvestment, not just in dollars and cents, but in processes and understandings and stuff. And I think it's imperative that younger generations and generations that are continue to be connected to what's happening out there, we have to keep telling this story. We have to keep saying, we have to keep convincing, because it's going to be hard. As a business owner, if you're sitting on a book of business and it's working, it's hard to make that reinvestment. I mean, it's a big leap to say, you know what, for the future of my children and grandchildren and whoever comes after me, I need to spend the time, money, resources to reinvent this thing or restart this system that I haven't had before. And I think that we have to give some credence to that and have that perspective and understanding that sometimes, you know, agency owners, and people that are making the decisions on moving technology forward at the grassroots level, they need to be told that story over and over and over again. They need to hear it. They need to see it. And Seth, I found no better person to communicate that than you in connecting carriers to pocketbooks and customers to pocketbooks, and how does all that work together? How do we, because we're in this business to own a business, to have a business. And so that's a big piece of this. And it's something we can't overlook.
Well, we've all been at the tire shop when they're like, hey, you need new tires. And you're like, that's ridiculous. And you go out there and you look, there's tread on those tires. And they're like, oh. They're like, look at, you can see the top of Abraham Lincoln's. Right. And you're like, there's still tread on that tires. These do not look bald to me. But what they're saying is they're at the end of their usable life. And very soon you're going to have an unplanned emergency.
Absolutely.
Run the tire car. So I don't care what they look like. The usable tread is no longer safe. And I would say it's the same thing with the agency management systems and our agency operations. Yeah, it looks like there's tread on the tire. I could see how one would be deceived. But you're going for a blowout if you run these things any further. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Chris, final thoughts here. We got about 3 minutes left.
Really simple. Change has already happened. The industry has to change because the customer changed. The customer controls what we do and how we do it. It's really simple. The internet changed the game, took the control from the agency back to the customer. And if we don't embrace this change, it's the reason why carriers continue to go direct, because we agents need to look in the mirror and embrace that change and change. And if we continually not going down that road and we continue not to change, don't be surprised if the carriers who sell only through us move. So I think it's on us. It's on us. We need to come together. We need to stick together. We need to help each other. We need to not think of each other as competitors. And at the end of the day, our destiny is held in the independent agent's hands. It's you and I.
Fantastic. Couple of cleanup things here. Olivia, final thoughts, and then I've got 2 things we're going to do on this end. Go.
Well, this was amazing. I know we had some technological issues, but I'm so glad that we got to pull you guys together and just siphon whatever information we could out of you guys. I'm so grateful that you guys are you're always generous with your time and your thoughts. And I'm excited to be on this ride with you guys, even if it's kind of from feels like a very outside view now, but I look forward to great things for all of you guys. I think this is amazing.
All right. This is my official whiteboard recap. This is the whiteboard recap. Okay.
Yes.
Some key phrases and things that we've seen and heard today. So CP is Chris Paradiso, using data to ID what's within the book and use that data to then extrapolate. What can we do with it? That was a good hit. Let's see. Jeff Roy is doing a bunch of lead scoring. Seth, you got a bunch here. I mean, really? I didn't.
His coattails. You know that, Landon.
What's that?
We're all on Seth's coattails.
Absolutely. You have to believe the data is worth optimizing. Fantastic. All interactions, digital and otherwise, lead to relationship. We have to remember that. This is probably my favorite one. Will we be aggregated or will we do it to ourselves?
Let's do it ourselves.
Bam. That was awesome. Insurance companies are being data muled just like agents. CP, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then the final one I had was our data is worth more than our agency renewals.
It's true.
I did all that and try to jump you all back and forth here. I mean, we're
Landon's he's a rock star at Live.
Any man
working on my status
is the one who has special skills.
Thank you all so very much. We have reached our time limit. Just thank you. We just can't say it enough.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll have you guys on again.
Yeah, anytime.
If you're willing. All right.
We have to do a reboot on Jeff Roy too.
Yes, we will do a reboot with Jeff Roy for sure.
Not in an airport.
Right.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right.
Take care.
Have a great rest of the week.